Hey Angela and David, Dennis here. So like I mentioned, I thought I would go ahead and try and make a video to do some of the walkthrough, get it in front of you in advance of your pickup tomorrow. So I figured we'd just run through some of the main areas that we're going to cover anyway, and this can also just serve as a reference. So you know, when you get home, if you have questions, some of the answers might be here. So usually we start in the galley, so we're going to go ahead and open up our hatch here, and voila, we're all set here. So we've got the light on, so we'll start over here on the left here with our dashboard. So our light switch is up top here. And then we've got our nice little dash clock here. We have our three 12-volt outlets here, so these are always live. One of them right now is occupied by the fridge, and that's usually when you're traveling, it's going to be running the fridge. So you have two more 12-volt outlets for charging things. These, by the way, are just standard cigarette style 12-volt outlets, so you can put adapters in there for USBs and that sort of thing. So like I said, these are always live, hooked up to the battery. If we come over to the right side here on our second dashboard, this dashboard has our battery monitor here. And there's good write-up in the manual, by the way, of the information on this battery monitor. I like it, all the information is right on this main screen here. So it shows the battery, a picture of the battery. You have the 206 amp hour lithium battery. So this battery is almost completely full. We've been running the lights and the fans a little bit. So you can see here, there's a state of charge indicator. It says 95%, so the battery's almost 100% full. So that's a very useful thing to be watching, is the battery, as you drain the battery using it after several days. And then down in the bottom corner, you'll see volts here. So this is just telling you what the voltage is coming out of the battery. With the nice thing about the lithium is the voltage should stay pretty stable up in the high 12s and 13s. So lithium, the voltage goes kind of straight across, and then it doesn't really drop off until it's pretty much exhausted. Whereas an AGM battery, the voltage slides down, you know, as it's being discharged. So that's going to give you a good indicator of just the health of the battery. You know, the battery should be putting out about, you know, high 12s or 13 volts at all times. The number next to it, you'll see a negative or a positive number with an A next to it. That's amps. That's how many amps is currently being used on the trailer. So right now it says negative 1.34. That's pretty much this light right here. So if we turn that off, that number would go to 0. So those are the three primary items you're going to be watching here. Your state of charge, making sure your voltage is good and strong, and as a reference, how many amps are either going in or coming out of the battery. If you're charging the battery, this should be a positive number. So if you've got solar panels, for instance, or you're plugged into shore power, that A number should turn to a positive number. The other couple numbers are, you can kind of ignore. They're ancillary. We don't use them very much. By the way, this screen is backlit right now. You can turn that off by holding this top arrow button over here just for 2 or 3 seconds, and that backlight will go off. So if you don't want that lit up for whatever reason, you can turn the backlight off, and then to turn it back on, just hold that top arrow button, and then the backlight will come back on. Otherwise, there's not very much you need to do in the battery monitor in terms of you know, other menus. There are a few menus behind it, but generally those are general settings, and you don't need to play with them unless there's an issue. Then over here we have our 110 outlet. So this is just a standard GFCI outlet like you might have in your bathroom. A couple of important things about this. Number one, this is only live if the trailer is plugged into shore power. So if you're at home and the trailer is plugged in, or you're at a campground and it has an electrical service that you can plug into on the side there, then that 110 goes straight to this outlet. So the only time this is going to be operable is if the trailer is plugged into 110. Otherwise, there's no inverter. You need an inverter to run 110 off of 12-volt battery, which is not on the trailer. So the other thing about it is a GFCI outlet. So It's possible, depending on what your power source is that you plug into when you plug the trailer in, it's possible that this outlet can trip the GFCI, which is a safety device to make sure that no one's getting shocked. It can trip it just momentarily. It doesn't happen here very often, but if you're in a campground, maybe with some more suspect power, it might momentarily trip. It's no problem. All you do is hit the reset button. There's two little buttons here, and there's even a little LED light that'll light up showing you that it's tripped and that it's not active. So you can just hit the reset button and you're ready to go. So that's our two dashboards there. Then our storage in the cupboards here, left and right, so we've got good deep storage there. And then storage on the right side as well. In this cabinet, the shelf is on shelf pins, so you can take those, move them up and down, or take this shelf out entirely if you want. And then our fridge in the middle here is, we've got a barrel bolt that locks it into place, so we always want to make sure the barrel bolt is locked in place when you're traveling. But otherwise, the fridge is going to slide out to you, open up, you'll be able to access everything. The control panel is on the right side here. It's fairly simple. You're basically just going to hit the set button and set it to whatever the inside temperature that you want to maintain. It takes a little bit of figuring out what that is between freezing your food and just keeping it cold. It's pretty much that. There is a good little manual in here that you can look at. The 12 volt, the plugs are on the side here. There's a 12 volt plug here, which is currently plugged in over there. So this plug just kind of wraps around behind the fridge, and I actually kind of tuck it just in the back there, just tuck the wire into the drawer, and that'll keep it from getting hung up behind the drawer. And then it just pops out and goes to the 12 volt there. For storage, if it's in storage in your house, it's just as a habit, I just pull that out so that you don't accidentally leave this on or something, and have a power draw that you don't know about. So another tip is just make sure when you close this that's closed tight. Sometimes if you leave it like that, it's going to be running a lot more. So make sure that's closed tight. Make sure when you're traveling that the barrel bolt is set in place. And then obviously the cooktop here, so there's two locking levers here, left and right. So you just hold those down at the same time, and that'll release the cooktop and the lock. And then we're going to extend it all the way. We've got our nice bamboo cover now. This cover just has butcher block oil on it, so it's food safe, so you can actually use this to cut on if you would like. And then if it gets chopped up, you can just sand it with a sander and then put some more butcher block oil on it. Otherwise, you can just use it as the cover. If the cover starts to dry, you can just put some more butcher block oil. It's just linseed, or not linseed oil, but it's just a mixture of oil and wax, and it'll just keep it nice and shiny. So we're gonna open the cover, and then right here there's a little shelf bracket leg that we want to make sure we lock in place, and that's going to keep this from falling down on you if we get a gust of wind. So get in the habit every time you open the cover to go ahead and use this. And then we've got a 3-burner cooktop here. Things to note that it is all sealed in here, so if you spill something, it's not going to go anywhere. You can just clean it up. The cast iron grates lift out. They just have these couple pins here that go into these rubber grommets. Little pro tip, if you do clean it and you're putting these back on, make sure you line these pins up pretty carefully with those rubber grommets, because if you don't have it perfectly lined up, you can actually push the grommet down into the cooktop, and then we've got to get you some replacement grommets, and they're an obnoxious $4 or $5 each. So I'll save you that headache. So a couple other things about the cooktop. I'm going to turn the propane on, and then we're going to fire it up for you. So the cooktop, a couple things. If it's been in storage for a while, or it has been used in several days, all the pressure in the propane line is going to dissipate. So it wouldn't be surprising if it takes 20 seconds or so for the propane to get from the tanks up to the burners. So it's been in storage or has been used in a few days. I don't know when we lit this up last time, but we will find out. The other thing about the cooktop, first of all, it has electric ignition here, just a little Pezzo lighter. If the Pezzo lighter goes out, it's just got a AA battery here. You just swap that out. And we've got a spare. We've got a little goodie bag with spare batteries and stuff. So you can swap it out right there. These valves on here are safety valves. So you actually, to light the cooktop, you have to push down on the knob and hold it down, and then hit the lighter, and then you're going to hold the knob down for another 4 or 5 seconds before letting it up, and that gives the valve time to fully open. So there's a diaphragm in the valve that needs a few seconds to fully open, and the purpose of it is so that if you have your propane on and this knob accidentally gets knocked into the open position, there isn't propane just coming out of the burner without being lit and filling your trailer. So it's a safety item. So same thing, if I just if I light it and I let it go, the burner is going to go out because I haven't given it that diaphragm time to fully open. Otherwise, we can light it. If we hold it for a few seconds and let it up, then it stays lit. And that'll just depend based on, sometimes if it's colder, it'll take a little bit longer for that diaphragm to fully open, or if you were just using the cooktop, the diaphragm may open really quickly. But it's a safety device, and you'll find it in the manual as well. So it's a good thing to have, actually. So that's pretty much all of the stuff on the cooktop. We obviously want to make sure this cools down fully before we put it away. And obviously we want to make sure that the burners are off before we close this thing. We have had a customer who put it down with it going and found out later. So no big damage, but still something you don't want to do. So we're going to let it cool off completely, and we just give it a shot to slide in and then lock into place on its own. So it's not going anywhere. And then we have more storage, obviously. Probably can't see it from this angle, but deep storage here. The only item in this storage compartment, there's a rod for the stabilizer jacks on the back corners here. And I won't get them down right now, but I'll include a video as to how the stabilizer jacks work and what this is for. But if you're going to deploy them, those are used after, when you're setting up camp and you get the trailer leveled and you just want to stabilize it, you're going to put these jacks down in the back and they'll help keep the trailer from rocking. But if you're looking for this stabilizer rod, there's just a couple clips in here to keep it from rolling around. Otherwise, this is all open for your storage. And then I'll show you this a little bit more in detail tomorrow at your pickup. But just the battery, the lithium batteries here, the charger or fuse panel. In terms of maintenance or anything in here, the first thing, I don't recommend you store anything in here because we've got a lot of electrical connections. And we certainly don't want to short anything out or bust any wires. So I don't recommend you store anything, but particularly nothing conductive, so nothing wet or metal in there. And to be honest, it's not a very convenient place to put things. People tend to put like paper towels in here, and I can pretty much guarantee that whatever you have stored in here, you'll have the cooktop out cooking, and that's when you'll need it. So it's not a great place to store things. The only other maintenance item in here, there's a strap around the battery here. We want to make sure the battery stays nice and tight and in place. We don't want it to start jumping. So I'd say, particularly for the first year or two, I would say after every trip or before every trip, just make sure that that strap that's around the battery is good and tight. If it's feeling like it's a little looser, you can just there's a little cam buckle on it. You can just cam it back down, and that's about it. Otherwise, if there's any electrical problems on the trailer, like any lights aren't working or the fan or anything's not working the way it should be, there's a 12-volt fuse block on the wall over here, just little automotive fuses. That's probably the first place that we would look, see if there's a fuse that's been blown. Probably not very likely though, because the different Everything's not on one circuit. There's several different circuits for everything. So, but that would definitely be the first place that we would look for an issue. And then there's also the battery charger in here, and there's a very good manual, and we can give you a little bit more of a rundown, but otherwise it's pretty much preset. You'll just plug in, the shore power plug is on the side here, so when you're at home, when it's in storage, or you're at a campground with service, you can plug the trailer into 110, and the charger will kick in, and it'll run whatever items you have on in the trailer, and also be charging the battery. And it's probably the quickest, most efficient way to charge the battery. So there's also a Bluetooth app you can download, by the way. It's called the Victron Connect app. You can get it on the, download that. And so you can actually hook up your phone to it and see where it is in the state of charge, or what charging cycle, or what the past charges have been. And it can be helpful as well. It gives you a little additional information to what's going on with this battery monitor. So I think that's pretty much everything back here. I guess we can cover this now. The hatch, just so you know, all of our seals are brand new, so they're as stiff as they're ever going to be, and we want them to be nice and stiff so that we have a good seal for years. When you're closing the hatch, we've got these 120-pound struts on here that are opening it. So the way we're going to close this is we're going to close it down until we hear a little poof of air where it's got to expel some air, and then we're going to turn the handle counterclockwise. Horizontal is locked, and then vertical is going to open her back up. So that's pretty much everything in the galley. We'll get shuffled around here, and I'll show you some things in the cabin. Well, we can't forget the cabin, so a couple things in the cabin here. We'll try and I don't have a great view of this, but we've got our headboard up front here, and we've got our headboard doors with magnets, magnet catches there, and these guys the headboard goes all the way through, so duffel bags and shoes, etc. And then we've got our cubbies top here for storing, for throwing your books and glasses, that sort of thing. And then on the headboard, there's the two more 12-volt outlets. So again, these are just the cigarette-style lighter outlets, and you can put in the USB adapters, etc. if you want to do your phone. We've got a nice little bamboo ledge here for a bottle of water or a coffee cup. And then our reading lights here swivel, turn on and off. And then we've got our windows up front here. I don't have the blackout inserts at my hand right now, but we'll have the blackout inserts. So at night, those are just black foam panels. It'll just push right into the window. So it'll completely black out the windows. It also helps insulate the windows. And they're nice and form-fitting instead of being kind of drapes, loose drapes that maybe are not so form-fitting. And then I'll come around to show you, we've got the Froley mattress system underneath the mattress here. So we've got our mattress, and then you can see the Froley spring system completely under the mattress that holds it up off the floor and gives a good air space underneath there. Okay, so now we've got just a view of the upper cabinet here, a couple things here. We've got the light switches for the porch lights that I mentioned before, left and right on the face of the cabinet here. We've got our cabinet storage up top here. We usually use these cubbies for get our clothes out for the next day and put that up here so that we're not wrestling out duffel bags out of there. There is a utility light up in the cubby here. So if you just need extra light to find your items, that light switch is up in the corner here to keep it out of the way. We've also got a couple wardrobe hooks for hanging items. And we've also had folks who've outfitted this bulkhead with, cargo netting and shelves and different items on here. Feel free, if you're putting screws in anywhere that you're uncomfortable, please feel free to email or call me, and I'm happy to let you know if there's any reason that you should be wary. Otherwise, the last item up here is we've got our Max Air fan, 12-speed, really nice fan. It's got a very good manual in our paperwork, so I won't go through the whole thing, but power switch to turn the motor on, raise the dome there, and it moves a lot of air for just a little bit at night. So when you're sleeping in here, you always need to have an exchange of fresh air. So having the fan on, even if it's cold out, having the fan exhausting, having the windows cracked is gonna reduce condensation and also just give you good fresh air. Condensation is always an issue in a small space. So the metal areas, will get more condensate on it than other areas. We usually just have to keep a small towel in the morning. You can wipe down any areas that have condensation, let it dry out in the morning, during the day. But obviously the fan and the windows do a lot to mitigate that. So you'll just have to get used to, how much they need to be open or how much the fan needs to be on. I'll note that fan comes with a cradle. If you wanted to mount this somewhere, you certainly could. Again, I would probably recommend some double-sided tape before screws until you know where you want it. I think that covers everything in the cabin. The next area is our doors and windows, obviously. So a few things to know about the doors. We've got our 2 latches here. So these are our latches that we're using when we're traveling and storing the trailer. They are compression latches. So this is how they're going to look closed. When we want to open the door, we're going to flip this latch open and this lever as well. And then we're going to turn the handles horizontal. And that's going to release the door from the jam, so we can go ahead and open it up. And we've got our window. We've got our nice little fold-up coffee table here. So that table just pulls up, and then there's a aluminum support leg underneath it that's going to hold it in place. So it's a great place when you're in there to put your coffee down or your books, that sort of thing, and then get it out of the way if you're not using it. By the way, for tucking the table away, one thing to know is that the leg is recessed in the bottom of the panel, and it's recessed over on this side. So when you fold this leg up, you want to push that leg up into its recess and then fold it down. And that recess, I always push it towards the handles here. So that guy drops down like that. If you pull it this way towards the front of the door, there's nothing for it to recess, and it's not going to lay flat. So you want to make sure when you're closing this up, just flip that leg towards the handle, and it goes for both sides. So that one will go towards the leather handle there. This one goes to the leather handle here. And then we obviously have our shade for evening, and it's a roller shade. There's a hook on the bottom here and a catch there. So this guy just goes down and hooks on there. Don't be surprised if a couple times it snaps back up at you until you get used to where that catch is. And then, by the way, the handle is just to help close the door when you're in there. Just pull that door around for you. The window, they both have locks on the inside here. So you're just going to flip that lever down, and then you open the window. The screen's also open, so whoever's on coffee duty can pass through coffee in the morning. And then these guys close back up. And we obviously want to make sure these are locked when we're taking off from camp and hitting the road. The lever here, this is basically your deadbolt for when you're inside. So these 2 levers are going to be used, when you're 99% of the time when you're traveling and when it's in storage. This is the lever that you're going to use when you're actually in the trailer at night, acts as a deadbolt. The way these levers work, by the way, there's a metal door jamb around the door, and the exterior latches, when you turn these vertically, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little cam arm here, and that when you turn it vertical, it's going to engage the door jamb back there, and then when you snap the lever closed, it actually pulls the door down on the seals. So these 2, need to be horizontal to open and close the door, and then vertical, and then closing it. The interior one is very simple. It's up and down. When you get in, when you close it, it's going to grab the back of the jamb and pull the door down on the seals as well. There's a bevel on this deadbolt, so it actually does physically pull the door tight onto the seals. So that's the way you're going to use the interior door locks. Again, exterior here to close it up. By the way, at night, these are all sealed, so you don't need to turn these or you don't need to do anything with these. These will just remain, these can just remain open and still sealed. So, but when you're closing the door from the outside, just usually the way you do this, just turn that one vertical. The more vertical you can do it, the better. So vertical, and the reason is when you snap it down, you want this lever to lay flush. So if you've got it off on an angle like this and you try and snap it down, it's not going to lay flush. So you'll get used to doing this regularly. So those two latch, by the way, they are locked. They are keyed the same, both top and bottom and side to side. So you'll have one key for the doors, for the cabin doors, and you'll have one key for the hatch. So you'll start with 2 keys, and then you'll end up with about 7 or 8 once you add in locks and everything. And then there's also on the outside of the door, there's a holder here. So if you're sitting in the doorway and you don't want the door to be popping back at you, you just give that a push and it locks into that socket and will hold the door from the wind blowing it open. So you just pull it open and you're good to go. We also have our porch light out here, by the way, while we're on the side. So up on the cabin, the top cabinet here, there are lights switches on each side. So these are for the porch lights. It's just enough light to basically light up this, your immediate area without lighting up the whole campground. So if you have to get out at night, it's nice. And then while we're on the side here with the Pioneer platform, which we'll go through a little bit tomorrow, but there's a 12-volt outlet on both sides here. So this is what's called an SAE plug. So it's just a different style of plug than the 12-volt, than the cigarette style. But the purpose of this one and the one on the other side is your awning on the other side has an LED light strip on it. So when you open it up, there'll be actually an LED light strip in there that you can use. And that has a 12-volt plug that you can then plug right into the outside here rather than bringing that wire down through the window or through the hatch. So you have an accessible 12-volt plug here. Really for anything, if you had other 12-volt landscape lights or something you wanted to use, there's one here, there's one on the other side. And then our 2 plugs in the back here, the top one is our shore power plugs. That's where we're going to plug in our extension cord. And then the plug below it, which is also an SAE plug, is your if you wanted to hook up solar panels to the trailer and charge the battery that way, that's just plug and play for solar panels. So you have those 2 plugs there. And obviously there's some good information in the manual about breaking camp. We want to make sure that there's no bedding hanging down and into the door jamb when you're getting ready to hit the road. Anything hanging down to the door jamb can wick up moisture from the road if it's raining. So you want to make sure everything is turned down to the inside of the cabin before you are hitting the road. Just other random things while we're over here. Lug nuts. Within the first couple 100 miles, you want to make sure that you retighten the lug nuts. So we torque them here to spec, which is 110 foot-pounds here, but it's not rolling. So once you get out on the road, those lug nuts will sit a little bit more. So you can do it yourself with a torque wrench or just run into a Les Schwab or a gas station and they should be able to just tighten them up for you. Tire pressure, we usually run high 30s, maybe 38 to 40. It just gives a little bit of extra suspension, a little softer ride. Just make sure it's not low enough that the sidewall is starting to puff out at all. But around 40 will get you a pretty good ride. I think we'll move around to the front here and cover a little bit of the propane tanks and storage. Okay, so up front now, we've just got a couple things to go over with the propane and the storage. We'll go through the hitching up tomorrow. We'll run through the 7-pin connector, but you have a standard round 7-pin connector here. We've gone through the drawbar, so we should be good tomorrow. So we'll go through all this stuff tomorrow. But real quick up front, our propane tanks here, we've got the two composite propane tanks, which are full, by the way, so they're ready to go. And so we have an automatic switchover regulator back here. So the way this works is there's a lever on the top. Whichever way the lever is pointing, whichever tank it's pointing to, is the tank that it's currently drawing off of. So what you want to do is use one tank as your supply tank, and then this is going to be your reserve tank or vice versa. But what that allows you to do is draw one tank down fully and have a whole second tank in reserve. But if you do need to switch it over, you just switch the lever over and it will start to draw off this tank. So different people have different strategies. Sometimes they'll draw them down a little bit more equally, but usually I just stick it on one tank. It's a lot of propane for this trailer, particularly just for the cooktop. So, I mean, probably next year you'll have to fill a tank or check them. So, as far as knowing where you are in the volume of the tank, I recommend that you just get a little propane gauge that will you unscrew one of the propane whips, and then it's a little gauge that screws into the tank, and then you screw the propane hose back onto that, and then when you open it up, it'll tell you approximately what the how full the tank is. So it just does it based on pressure, so it's not exact depending on the temperature, etc. But it'll give you a pretty good ballpark idea. Is it full, 3/4 full, half, or nearing empty? So another thing, I don't recommend that you leave them on here if you do get them. I just get one, and then you can test the tanks before your trip or after your trip, and then take it off the tanks and just store it in your storage box. If you leave them attached, they tend to get less and less accurate since they're constantly under pressure and out in the environment. So just use it just to test it periodically, and then you'll have a much more accurate gauge. These whips, by the way, are just hand tightened like your barbecue tank. Don't use a wrench on them. If a tank does run empty, these are obviously your tanks. They're not exchange tanks, so don't give them to anybody. Depending where you go, they may, if you go to a gas station or something, they may fill it on the trailer, but a lot of places will have you remove the tank, bring it over and fill it there, which is technically the way it's supposed to happen. So if you need to remove the tank, there's just a big wing nut up top here. You just loosen that up, and then this bar will come up and allow you to take this pigtail off, and then take the tank over, fill it, put it back on. And when you do, if you do need to do that, you need to put the tank back on. You'll notice that we have these kind of angled back this way, and the reason for that is the collar on the tank here, there are these little bridge sections. We want to make sure that this support bar that holds the tank down is over one of these bridges. If you put it in the middle here, it's going to sort of deform the handle because this is just a plastic handle, and so we want that support under there. So that's the reason these are kicked back like that. And so if you do need to remove them, we recommend that you put them back the same way they are situated here. Obviously, we want to make sure anytime we're not cooking, so when we're traveling or we're away from camp or sleeping, that the propane tanks are closed. So I had it open to test the cooktop before, so I'm going to make sure that both of those are closed. That leads us up to our storage box. So we've got the nice aluminum storage box with a latch and lever. You can, by the way, put a lock on this if you've got goodies in there that you don't want to walk away. Otherwise, you've got open storage here. It's great for the extension cords and wheel chocks, leveling pads, that sort of thing. Even when you hitch up, the wheel will come off and you can put that in here. I have got in here some relating to the front windows. So the front windows are acrylic, so they can scratch. So you want to be gentle with them, like when you're washing them, you don't want to use any sort of Brillo pad or anything, a very soft towel, soap and water. If you rub on them, it will start to get those very small hairline scratches. There is, we just got these, we're going to email everybody and let them know it's available. It's a plastic cleaner and a small scratch remover and a heavy scratch remover. So it's kind of a nice kit. If you do get scratches over time on the windows that you're starting to see, either just from regular use or washing and that sort of thing, and you want to be able to kind of recondition the windows, this is a good product for it. So I'll send that along in an email to you as well. And that's pretty much everything up front here. Just so you know, when you go to DMV to get the title, there will be a VIN plate on the right on the passenger side of the tongue, just underneath the box here. So when you take the trailer to get the VIN inspection, they're going to come out and look at it, and that's why you know where that is. Okay, so we've come pretty much full circle here. Last couple things I thought I would cover with you during the video is we've got your awning set up on the passenger side here, which is usually the best place for it for deploying. And then we've got the rear awning back here, the dome awning. As far as, I'll send along, I'm not going to deploy these right now, I'll send along a couple videos of both of these being deployed. Best thing is a couple practices, maybe in your driveway. It'll take 20 or 25 minutes the first time you do it. After you do it 2 or 3 times, you'll pretty much be an expert, and it'll probably take 5 or 10 minutes to put up and take down each one. As far as maintenance, particularly with the Pioneer platform, the towers have a couple screws here that hold the mounting plates. They're a special security type screw, so anybody can't just come along with a screwdriver and take it off. We've got that bit for you here. Obviously, we would make sure periodically, particularly if you start loading any weight up there. Right now, you've just got awnings up there, but the rack itself weighs is a pretty stout rack. So we want to make sure that the towers are secure at all times to the plates with these 2 screws. There's also 1 bolt that goes up into the deck itself here. We want to make sure that is always good and tight, so there's no play in this rack at all, or in the cargo deck. Further, there's the awnings themselves attach into the deck with a bolt up top. We've put on 3 brackets for the awning, so it's nice and it's really steady. It usually only has 2 brackets. We actually add a 3rd one. So we want to make sure that the bolts here, the bolts on the back of the bracket, same thing with the rear awning. Just checking these periodically, it'll save you a big headache. If you don't check them, you might find 2 years from now you're going down the road and your awning is laying on the side of the road. So there is a lot of vibration and that sort of stuff up here, so being aware of that. We've tried to make it as foolproof as possible. We're even making some of our own hardware in here to make it even stronger. But checking those will be your responsibility every, at least once or twice a season, I'd say, to make sure everything stays good and put. Also you'll notice that the roof vent is open right now, and when you turn the roof vent on and the dome goes up, it's going to go ahead and hit the bottom of the cargo deck, and that's perfectly fine. If the cargo deck were not here, that would probably go up another 3 or 4 inches to be fully open. It does not harm the fan. It has a pressure switch there, so it knows when it's not going up anymore, and it shuts off the lift motor. So it's no problem, and it's still open enough that you have plenty of air entering and exiting through the fan. So it's no problem. Don't be alarmed if it thumps up against that. It'll stop opening on its own. And these, by the way, these are just covers for and so we'll take these off for you, but include them in the trailer. If you're putting a cover or something over it, it just kind of protects the cover from the back of the extrusion. And the only other pro tip I'll mention is that in the dome awning, when you first open it, there's a couple tent poles in here, and I think a couple guy lines that are going to come out and try and hit you in the face. So when you open this up, be aware there's a couple tent poles in there. And another pro tip, if you have a little stool or a block of wood or something, it will make it a little bit easier when you're putting this back away. Taking it down is pretty simple, but when you're putting it back away, it's, having just like a little folding stool or something makes it a lot easier to get up here. And also, if you're just putting items up on the cargo deck, you can certainly stand on the fenders. They are bolted through the wall. We ask you to, use your best judgment when you're doing it. We do stand on them to get up and do things on the trailer. We do usually stand towards the inner edge rather than the outer edge, so that you're putting your weight over where the bolts are, but that should be no problem. And so that will help you if you need to get things up on the cargo deck as well. And lastly, I think you can see it in the video, there's this is the privacy room that zips into the awning. So it's in a nice bag right now. Unless if you're a better man than me, you can maybe get it back in the bag as nicely. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But it's a nice awning room. Set it up in here. And I'm not sure I have a video of that going in, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So I'll try and send you videos of the awnings being deployed along with these videos. But I think we're in a good position tomorrow to just cover some last items, maybe in the cabin, and then we'll get you hitched up and get you home and let you enjoy your high camp. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.